Welcome to my channel, Wild Earth. I'm Jason, and today I'm going to give you an Audacity tutorial on how to process your audio to make it sound more professional. So I have Audacity right here, and I have some example audio that I'm going to process for you and give you some tips on how to make your audio sound more professional. So let's start. Okay, so the first tip actually doesn't have anything to do with Audacity, and that's record your audio in a good space that doesn't have very much echo, where your mouth is close to the microphone, and so on. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but this space I'm recording in isn't the best space, but it's not too bad. It doesn't have as much echo as another room over there, and so I'm doing the best I have with this recording setup, but in general, just try and record in a good space. So that's my first tip. If you don't record your audio in a good space, and you have a lot of background noise and a lot of echo, it will be almost impossible to fix. So now that we have that talked about, let's go to the first part of the tutorial. So the first thing, I have Audacity open here, and I have my audio sample. I'll just play it back for you quickly.
Let R be a Noetherian ring, and A a finitely generated non-zero R module. Then, there are only a finite number of maximal primes of A, and each is the annihilator of a non-zero element of A.
Okay, so that's the audio. And before I start editing it, I'll just go over to the sidebar here, right-click and check logarithmic. And I'm just doing that because it's easier to see the waveform and what's happening in the waveform. So now my first tip is to denoise. Most audio is going to come with some kind of noise. If I highlight just this little section here and play it back, there's a little bit of noise in the background. So we're going to want to remove that noise. Now we can't remove too much noise, but a little bit of static like this is not too hard to remove in Audacity. So what I'm going to do is go to the menu and click on Tools, no, not Tools, Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, and I'm going to click Noise Reduction. Now I click Noise Reduction with a little bit of noise highlighted, so it's a good idea to have some blind spot or some quiet spot on your audio where the noise is just playing and there's nothing else in the background. So when I first open this noise reduction dialog, I'm going to see that there's a button here and it's called Get Noise Profile. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to highlight the whole audio, go back to Effect, Noise Removal, Noise Reduction, and just click on, well, I'm going to click on OK, but first I'm going to adjust this noise sensitivity. So in the noise reduction dB, I like to use something around 9 or 10 decibels, depending on how noisy the audio is. But for this audio, I usually use around 9 or 10 decibels. You might have to experiment with your own audio to see how much noise reduction you'll need. I'm going to click OK. Now you'll see that the noise was removed. So I'm just going to play a small piece back for you.
Let R be a Noetherian ring, and A a finitely generated non-zero R module.
Okay, so I've removed the noise from the audio. That's the first step because it helps me understand and see the audio a lot better. Okay, part 2, the next step after noise reduction is I like to remove clicks, mouth clicks from the audio. Now I think almost everyone, when you talk, you're going to have some mouth clicks in your audio, and they're kind of annoying. So let's see if we can find one of them.
Let R be a Noetherian ring, and A a finitely generated non-zero R module.
In this area here, you can hear quite a lot of mouth clicks, so let's play that back.
Generated non-zero R module.
See, there's quite a lot of clicks around here. So if I zoom into that audio and play it again,
finitely,
you can hear quite a lot of clicks in this section here. Now, I've already made a video on how to remove mouth clicks from your audio, but I'm just going to go over that very briefly here. Now, the best tool to use, first of all, you have to use this to isolate where the clicks are. Just use this playback speed button so you can play your audio back slowly, and drag your playback speed button to something like 0.2, then play it back again. And I can hear in this tiny little section, there's some mouth clicks. Now what I'm going to do is just highlight that section and expand it more. And you can see already there's something wrong with the waveform here, and that is a mouth click. Let me play that back for you really slowly. Now you can hear the click happens right around at this spot. Now there's one main way to fix that, and that you can use the repair tool in Audacity. And to find it, just go to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair. I already have that mapped to the R key, so I can just hit the R key to repair that mouth noise. Now let me play it back again. Now you can't hear the mouth noise anymore. So that's the main technique. A mouth noise is going to be a small little section of your audio that has these weird things in them that look sort of distorted, you can just select them and hit the repair key. The important thing to note about the repair tool is that it can only repair a small section of your audio. So if I select a huge section of the audio and I click repair, it'll give you this warning message which says the repair effect is not intended to be used on very short sections of damaged audio. So in order to use this tool more effectively, I like to go down and make sure that I have something called start and length of selection selected. And then, instead of displaying the length of the selection in seconds, I like to go and change it to samples, because the repair tool works for audio segments up to 128 samples. So let's now find another mouth click and repair it. There's a small mouth click right here you can see. If I select it and click repair, you see underneath it won't work because it says 159 samples. So I'm going to decrease the length of my selection until I get to something like 121 samples, and now the repair tool will work. So that was a little fast about repairing mouth clicks, but if that was too fast, I suggest you check out my other video on repairing mouth clicks in Audacity, where I go over a little more of the technique behind repairing mouth clicks. But basically, using that tool will repair pretty much all of the mouth noises you have in your audio. Of course, if you have mouth noises in between audio like this, you don't have to use the repair tool. You can just select all the clicks and just totally silence that area. So that's the next thing I like to do, is repair mouth clicks. Now, before we go into the tutorial, I'm just going to open another file where I've already removed all the mouth clicks, because watching me do it is just going to be a little too boring. So now I have this sample, and I've removed all the mouth clicks using just that technique, and we can listen to it one more time.
Let R be a Noetherian ring, and A a finitely generated non-zero R module. Then, there are only a finite number of...
See the section that had a lot of mouth clicks in it before?
Generated non-zero R module.
Now sounds a lot better because I removed all the mouth clicks. So that's the second thing I like to do with my audio. The next thing I like to do is de-ess manually. Well, what is de-essing in the first place? Well, let's listen to some little piece of audio right here.
Let R be a Noetherian ring, and A a finitely generated non-zero R module.
See, S sounds are sounds made when you say the letter Z or the letter S, and they sound like a S sound. So you can see them in the waveform sometimes. They don't look like these little squiggles. Instead, they look like these sort of solid blocks. So what I like to do is de-ess manually. Now, I know a lot of software has de-essing solutions built in, and you can use an automatic de-esser, which basically brings down the frequency of the S sounds in your audio. The problem with automatic solutions is they apply the same amount of reduction to every single S sound. And in general, in your audio, not all S sounds will have exactly the same amplitude or the same amount of volume. So I like to go through my audio and find the S sounds that are very strong and reduce them a little using the amplify function. So if I play this back,
generated non-zero R.
That S sound from non-zero was quite loud there. So I like to select that and just click amplify. You can also access that through effect, volume and compression amplify. And I like to bring down the strongest S sounds. Typically I find if I bring them down by between 5 and 8 decibels, it makes them a lot more pleasant to listen to. So let's play that back again.
Generated non-zero R module.
Now the S sound there isn't so strong. Because I've reduced it by about 5 decibels, it's not as harsh on the ear. And if you go back and you reduce your loudest S sounds, then later when you apply your automatic de-esser, the S sounds will still be more uniform. Now there are a couple tricks that I like to use when I'm de-essing sometimes, and it can help make your S sounds a little bit better. So the first trick I like to use is not reduce the entire S. Sometimes what's going to happen is if you reduce the entire S sound, it might not be very audible or as clear.
Generated non-zero R.
See, that S sound in that audio was quite loud and quite perceptible. If I just select the entire S sound and I click reduce by, say, 7 decibels, oops, I think I accidentally didn't select it there. If I just take this and reduce it by, say, 11, maybe that's too much. Maybe 11 decibels is too much. Maybe 7 decibels. I'll try one more time. All right. So let's suppose I try and select this portion of the audio right here, and I click amplify, and I reduce it by maybe 6 decibels. Well, then if I play back the S sound, see?
Generated non-zero R mod.
Then the S sound sounds a little better, but maybe it's a little bit too indistinct. So what I like to do sometimes is just highlight a piece of the S sound, especially the part where the amplitude is the greatest. Then press amplify and decrease it by a certain amount, maybe like 6 decibels, or well, let's go back to 6.5, 6 minus 6.6. And then the initial part of the S sound isn't reduced, so when I play it back,
Generated non-zero R mod.
it still has that distinct S sound kind of style at the beginning when it starts, and then later on the largest or the harshest part of the S is still reduced, so that's another possibility. Another technique of reducing S sounds is if you have an S sound at the very end of a certain word.
Only a finite number of maximal primes of A, and each is the annihilator of a non-zero element of A.
So here there's kind of like a 0 here. I could fade out, or since it's the start of a sound, I can go fading, fade in. And then if I play it back,
A non-zero element of
so sometimes fade in and fade out can work, especially at the end where there's an S sound at the end of your word. I don't think I have any of those
element
here.
of A.
But anyway, fade in and fade out can sometimes also work for S sounds. One more reason why I like to use manual de-essing is because sometimes the de-esser in programs works by selecting sounds of a certain frequency. So it will reduce S sounds, but it might not reduce other harsh types of sounds like the sounds in CH as in chapter. That sound won't actually be quite in the same frequency as an S sound, but sometimes a ch sound can still be quite harsh, so I like to use the same technique by reducing some of those sounds a little bit if they sound a little harsh. And again, this is not something you should do to all of your S sounds. Just go and find the ones that sound harsh. Go and find the sounds like the CH sounds that sound harsh and reduce those also by using this technique. Another technique that I like to use is remove gaps. Now, what is that all about? Well, first of all, let's play this audio sample.
There are only a finite number of maximal primes of A.
Now you see, I say here,
A finite number of maximal primes of A.
finite number of maximal primes of A, but
A finite number of maximal primes of
I feel like the space between the maximal and the primes wasn't quite clear. I was kind of blending the words together. So what I like to do in those cases is I like to select a small, tiny little portion of the audio, maybe under 1,000 samples, and just silence the gap between 2 words. If I silence the gap between 2 words, then the distinction between those words is going to be more clear. Let's listen to it again.
There are only a finite number of maximal primes of A.
Now, in that case, it's clear that the distinction between maximal and primes was quite more distinct, whereas before the words sounded more slurred together. Now, I don't recommend that you use this technique for every single word. Don't try and separate all words. People naturally talk by mixing some words together. It's not going to sound natural if you try and separate every word, but if you do find that there's a lack of distinction between 2 words in your audio, try silencing a very small portion of the audio between the 2 words, maybe between 200 and 500 samples or 200 and 700 samples. Experiment with it, and sometimes you can make the clarity of speech a lot better if you just do a little bit of silencing at key points, maybe 1 in every 15 words. Don't do it with every word because it won't sound natural, but if you do it here and there on the cases which sound very blended together, then it is going to sound a little bit better in some cases. Okay, another technique I like to use is I made a little bit of a mistake when recording this audio. Let's listen to it.
Then, there are only a finite number of maximal primes of A, and each is the annihilator of a non-zero element of A.
See, at the very end here, I said something here. Non-zero element. I should have said non-zero element, but I said non-zero element. I didn't say the T sound. The T sound was suppressed. Let's listen to it again.
Is the annihilator of a non-zero element of A.
Now, ideally, you're going to get this right in your recording, but what I like to do if I don't want to re-record and I'm too lazy, I like to find a T sound in another part of the audio and put it in the part of the audio where it's missing. So let's try that. Let's listen to the whole audio and see if we can find a T sound to use.
Let R be a noetherian ring.
Can't seem to find my T sound.
Let R be a no...
Oh, here's the T sound. Here's the T sound. The T sound is right at the beginning when I say let. Let's listen to it.
Let R
So I'm going to highlight that T sound here. Don't highlight too much of it because it's going to kind of interfere. It's going to kind of capture the next word. So I highlight just a little bit. Just here it is, just 1,572 samples. And I go where the T sound is missing at the very end of the audio.
Element of A.
And I just go somewhere between, right after I say element, and I forget element, and I paste in that T sound. Let's listen to it again.
Annihilator of a non-zero element of A.
Now it's not quite perfect yet because it sounds a little bit too strong. So you can change it a little bit, maybe by deleting a little bit of space between element and the T sound. And you can also highlight the T sound and decrease its amplitude and decrease its volume, maybe a little bit, maybe like a few decibels. So it sounds a little more natural. Okay, so if I reduce the T sound by a little bit, maybe 6 decibels, then let's listen to it again.
Zero element of A.
That sounds a little bit better. See, now I've replaced the T sound that I omitted when I was recording the audio. Now again, ideally you would record it properly and say the words more clearly, but this can help you really make your audio more clear if you don't have time to re-record your audio, or you can't for some reason get the audio re-recorded for whatever reason. So, and what I like to do is, if I find a nice sounding T sound, I like to bookmark where it is and just put T here. So now I've highlighted where the T sound is. So if I need the T sound later when I'm editing, I can go back and take that T sound and put it where it's missing. And that doesn't just apply to T sounds either. You can also find any kind of sounds that you're missing at the end of your audio, like a D sound, and this technique works just as well for that. So if for some reason the end of your word doesn't sound clear, you can find the end of another word that sounds more clear and kind of paste it in. And with a little bit of fiddling, you can actually make it sound kind of good. And now the final thing I want to talk about is Audacity and its limitations. And this isn't an Audacity tip, but when to not use Audacity. And you notice what I haven't done yet is apply equalization, and I haven't applied dynamics like compression or limiting. You might not need those things, but almost surely you're going to need some kind of equalization because usually the space that you'll be recording in won't be perfect. Maybe the microphone won't be perfect for your voice, and so you might want to apply a bit of equalization. Now it is true that if I select all my audio and I go to Effect, EQ, and Filters, there is a graphic equalizer for Audacity. There's also a filter curve equalizer tool. And if you go here, it's right, filter curve EQ. You can apply an equalization curve to your audio right in Audacity. But the problem is, with Audacity, you cannot listen to your audio in real time when you're applying these effects. So it's very hard to apply filter curve EQ, equalization, and dynamics to your audio if you can't listen to it in real time as you're applying the effect. Because, well, the thing is, you're never going to need the exact same equalization curve or dynamics for every single audio file. So you're going to have to do it from scratch every time. And sort of playing around with it here, pressing the preview button in Audacity, is just not going to be very fun. It's not going to work very well. So what I recommend is downloading a free copy of DaVinci Resolve. If I open up DaVinci Resolve, you import your audio into it and use the equalization functions and the dynamic functions in DaVinci Resolve. And in DaVinci Resolve, you can listen to your audio in real time instead of having to do it in Audacity, do these equalization operations in Audacity. So let me do it. If I go to File, Export, I'll just export it as an MP3, but you probably should export it as a WAV file. If I export this file here from Audacity onto my desktop, and then I just take that file and drag it right in to DaVinci Resolve, then when I go to the Fairlight Audio tab, I can see, well, first I have to drag the audio file in to my project, and now the audio file is in my project. And now when I go to the Audio tab in DaVinci Resolve, I can play it.
Let R be a Noetherian ring.
And as I'm playing it, I can click right on the equalizer and play the audio at the same time.
And A, a finitely generated non-zero
And I can
R
drag
module.
the equalization curve up and down.
There are only a finite number of maximal primes of A.
And I can find the problem areas in my audio as I'm listening to it, as I'm playing with the equalization curve, so I know exactly how to apply the equalization. What kind of equalization settings do I need to make the audio sound better? That's so much easier if you use a real-time kind of system like DaVinci Resolve over Audacity. And the same thing with dynamics and compression. You can use those tools from DaVinci Resolve much more easily as you're listening to the audio as opposed to using it in Audacity. So those are my Audacity tips, or when not to use Audacity in the last case, for processing and making your audio sound a lot better and more professional. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments. Thank you very much.